My name is Elena Rose Whitmore, though everyone who actually cares about me calls me Ellie. I'm 22 years old, and a few weeks ago, my stepmother demanded that I pay rent to live in my own house, while her 2 adult children continued living there for free. When I refused, she tried to convince my father to throw me out. There was only one problem. The house belonged to me. To understand how a woman could live under someone else's roof for 12 years and still believe she owned it, you need to know what happened before she arrived. I lost my mother, Rebecca, to breast cancer when I was 8. Even now, certain hospital smells take me back to those final months, the sharp sting of disinfectant, stale coffee in paper cups, and the lavender lotion Mom rubbed into her hands whenever the medication dried her skin. My father, Daniel, was shattered. For almost a year, he moved through life like a man walking underwater. He kept his consulting business running, but at home, he sometimes forgot to eat. I learned to recognize the sound of him crying behind his bedroom door. My maternal grandparents, Margaret and Henry Bennett, saved us. They weren't extravagantly wealthy, but they had spent their lives making careful decisions. They bought a large 4-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood outside Boston so all 4 of us could live together. Grandma cooked. Grandpa helped me with homework. Dad worked through his grief without having to worry whether I was alone. For a while, that house felt like a life raft. Then Dad met Vanessa Cole. He met her at a business conference in Chicago 2 years after Mom died. He was trying to expand his consulting company. Vanessa was coordinating the event. According to him, they understood each other immediately. According to Grandma, Vanessa understood opportunity. After knowing Dad for 3 months, Vanessa moved across the country with her 2 children. 6 months later, they were married. Her son, Mason, was 11 at the time. He was loud, entitled, and already skilled at turning every inconvenience into someone else's fault. Her daughter, Chloe, was 7, only a year younger than me. Chloe wasn't cruel then. In fact, during her first week in the house, she climbed into my bed during a thunderstorm because she was frightened. Sometimes, I still wonder what kind of person she might have become if Vanessa hadn't taught her that kindness was weakness and privilege was love. My grandparents never openly fought the marriage. Dad had smiled again for the first time since Mom died, and they didn't want to take that from him. But I overheard them talking one night. She watches the house when she thinks no one is looking, Grandma whispered. Grandpa replied, she watches everything that doesn't belong to her. I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now. Vanessa began with small criticisms. The wallpaper was old-fashioned. The cabinets needed replacing. My grandmother's dishes looked cheap. The framed photographs of Mom made the rooms feel too sad. Then, things began disappearing. A ceramic angel Mom had painted vanished from the mantel. Vanessa said it had cracked. A box of Christmas ornaments from my childhood was accidentally donated. Photographs of Mom slowly migrated from the living room to a hallway, then from the hallway into a closet. Every time I protested, Vanessa tilted her head and spoke to me in the patient voice adults use with difficult children. Ellie, we can't preserve the house like a museum. Your father deserves to move forward. Moving forward always seemed to mean erasing my mother. The chores came next. At first, Vanessa created a family schedule. Within months, family somehow meant me. Mason was too busy with basketball, although he spent more time complaining about practice than practicing. Chloe was supposedly too young, despite being only 1 year younger than I was. By 12, I cooked several nights a week, cleaned the bathrooms, washed everyone's clothes, and dusted rooms no one used. Vanessa inspected the baseboards with one finger and made me repeat the work if she found dust. Meanwhile, Mason's bedroom smelled like body spray and old pizza. Chloe's clothes covered her floor so completely that you couldn't see the carpet. Dad noticed some of it. But Vanessa always had an explanation. Ellie is more mature. Responsibility will help her. She likes feeling useful. I didn't like feeling useful. I was afraid that if I stopped being useful, Dad would choose his new family over me. My grandparents saw more than they admitted. Before Grandma died from heart problems in 2019, she started organizing documents with Grandpa. He died less than 3 months later, as though the grief had simply convinced his heart to stop trying. What I didn't know was that they had transferred the house into my name, legally and completely. It was mine. Dad knew. He never told me. For the next several years, I lived like an unpaid servant in a home I owned. I cooked, cleaned, and even washed Mason's disgusting gym clothes while Vanessa watched reality television and complained that I loaded the dishwasher incorrectly. Mason was now 25. He had barely graduated college 2 years earlier and had never held a real job. He called himself a content creator, but his short videos had fewer than 300 followers, and his gaming streams usually attracted 3 viewers. Chloe was 21 and supposedly studying business. In reality, she spent most of her time partying, photographing expensive coffee, and maxing out credit cards Dad paid. I worked part-time at a coffee shop while taking online classes. I bought my own clothes, paid my school expenses when I could, and saved whatever remained. Vanessa still hinted that I wasn't contributing enough. The confrontation happened after an 8-hour shift. A customer had shouted at me over almond milk. My feet hurt, and I wanted nothing more than to shower and sleep. Instead, I came home to make dinner. Mason was upstairs, screaming at strangers through his headset. Chloe was on the living room couch watching videos at full volume. Vanessa sat at the kitchen island in a cream-colored outfit she claimed was designer and watched me stir pasta sauce. "We need to have a serious discussion about your living situation," she said. My hand stopped above the pot. "My living situation. You're working now. Your father and I think it's time you began paying rent. It isn't fair for you to live here for free while we cover every expense." For a second, the only sound was sauce bubbling against the side of the pan. "What about Mason and Chloe?" Vanessa dabbed her mouth with a napkin. Although she hadn't eaten anything, that's different. They're my children, and they're still establishing themselves. Mason is developing his content career, and Chloe is concentrating on college. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked, "How much?" $800 a month, plus your share of utilities. Naturally, you would still be expected to help around the house. Help. That was the word she used for doing nearly everything. Something inside me became strangely quiet. All the inspections vanished, photographs, dirty laundry, and nights I spent wondering whether Dad would defend me compressed into one clear thought. Enough. I turned off the stove and placed the spoon on the counter. Let me understand this. Mason earns nothing and spends his days shouting at children online. Chloe has never touched a vacuum and uses Dad's credit card like it has no limit. Neither of them pays rent, but I do. Vanessa's mouth tightened. You're more established. And family helps family. Good, I said. Then we should discuss it as a family. I called everyone into the dining room. Mason complained about leaving his game. Chloe brought her phone and quietly started recording. Vanessa explained her proposal as if she were presenting a reasonable household policy. When she finished, I folded my hands on the table. "I'm not paying rent," I said, "because this house belongs to me." They stared at me for one beat. Then they laughed. Mason nearly spat pasta across the table. Chloe asked if I had learned the joke online. Vanessa laughed too. But panic flickered behind her eyes. "This house belongs to your father and me," she said. "Call Dad." She did. She put him on speakerphone, confident that he would humiliate me and restore the order she understood. "Daniel," she said sweetly, "Ellie is telling ridiculous stories. She says this house belongs to her. Tell her that isn't true." Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Actually, Vanessa. Margaret and Henry put the house in Ellie's name before they passed." Vanessa's face drained of color. "What do you mean?" "They put it in her name. The deed is in Ellie's name." "And when?" she whispered. "Were you planning to tell me?" I didn't think it was important. Vanessa ended the call before he finished. Mason had stopped laughing. Chloe lowered her phone. For the first time, all three of them looked around the dining room as if the walls had changed ownership in front of their eyes. Vanessa forced a brittle smile. "This has clearly been a misunderstanding. You don't need to pay rent. Ellie will forget this conversation happened." But I had spent too many years being told what to forget. I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, we're not forgetting it," I said. "In fact, I think it's time we had a serious discussion about your living situation." The terror in Vanessa's eyes told me she finally understood. But what I didn't know yet was that before breakfast the next morning, she would begin plotting with my father to remove me from my own home. I barely slept that night, for hours. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while the house settled around me. Pipes clicked behind the walls. Floorboards creaked in the hallway. Ordinary sounds I had heard since childhood suddenly felt different. For the first time, I understood that every room around me was legally mine. But instead of feeling powerful, I felt sick. Dad had known the truth for years. He had watched Vanessa order me around, watched me clean up after her children, and listened while she hinted that I was a burden. At any moment, he could have told me what my grandparents had done. He chose silence. The next morning, I was halfway down the stairs when I heard Vanessa's voice coming from the kitchen. "Daniel, you need to do something about this situation." I froze. Dad was on speakerphone. Vanessa always used speakerphone when she wanted an audience. But this time, she apparently believed everyone else was asleep. "What exactly do you want me to do, Dad?" asked wearily. Vanessa lowered her voice. "What about those out-of-state colleges Ellie applied to? You could encourage her to attend one. Tell her it would be good for her independence." My fingers tightened around the railing. She wasn't even trying to challenge my ownership. She was trying to remove me physically so she could continue controlling my home. I don't know. "Vanessa, think about it. Daniel, she's young. She needs to experience life away from home." A brief silence followed. Then Vanessa added in a soft, rehearsed tone. "Honestly, I'm worried about her mental health. All this anger she's carrying isn't healthy." I took out my phone and pressed record. Vanessa continued. "Last night proved she's unstable. She enjoyed humiliating us. If she stays there, she'll keep using the deed as a weapon. You need to remind her that family matters more than a piece of paper." A piece of paper. That was how she described the document protecting the only home I had left. That's Sihil. Maybe you're right. I'll talk to her about moving away for college. It might be better for everyone. Those words hurt more than Vanessa's rent demand. This was my father, The man I had watched collapse after Mom died. The man whose meals I prepared when he forgot to eat. The man I had spent years trying not to disappoint. Yet when Vanessa suggested sending me away, he didn't defend me. He surrendered. I saved the recording and walked into the kitchen. Vanessa nearly dropped her phone. She was wearing a silk robe and holding the world's best mom mug. Mason and Chloe had bought her from a discount store. Her expression changed so quickly that if I had blinked, I might have missed the guilt. "Good morning, sweetie," she chirped. I made coffee. She had inserted a pod into the machine I bought with my own money. But I decided not to debate the definition of made. "Thanks." Mason shuffled in a few minutes later, pale from another night of gaming. Chloe followed, wearing perfect makeup. Although it wasn't even 8 in the morning. I prepared breakfast because apparently discovering I owned the house hadn't magically taught anyone else how to cook. We sat around the kitchen island beneath a silence so heavy that every clink of silverware sounded aggressive. Mason ate cereal while scrolling through videos. Chloe photographed her avocado toast without taking a bite. Vanessa stared at her phone. From where I sat, I could see the search bar on her screen. Can someone be evicted from a house after living there 12 years? I almost admired the optimism. "Vanessa," I said casually, "I've been thinking about what you said last night." Her head snapped up. "Yes, you were right. Adults shouldn't expect to live here for free." Relief softened her face. "I knew you would understand once you had time to calm down. I checked local rental prices this morning. Considering the neighborhood and the size of the rooms, I think $1,200 per person is fair." Her smile disappeared. "That means $3,600 each month for you, Mason, and Chloe. Utilities aren't included. I'll also need a security deposit." Mason inhaled a piece of cereal and started coughing. Chloe dropped her toast face down against her white shirt. Vanessa stared at me. "You cannot be serious." "I'm completely serious. We're family." "That's strange," I replied. "A few minutes ago, family meant convincing Dad to send me to another state." The room went still. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I placed my phone on the counter and played the recording. Her own voice filled the kitchen. "She needs to experience life away from home." Then came the concern about my mental health. The accusation that I was unstable. And finally Dad agreeing that moving me out might be better for everyone. When the recording ended, no one spoke. Vanessa stood so abruptly that her mug toppled over. Coffee spilled across the counter and dripped onto the floor. "You recorded me." "Yes. That's illegal. Massachusetts is normally a 2-party consent state," I said. "But you were speaking loudly on speakerphone in a common area of my home, where I could plainly hear you. More importantly, I'm not distributing it. I'm preserving evidence for my lawyer." That last sentence wasn't entirely true yet. I had scheduled a consultation. But Vanessa didn't need to know the difference. Her anger briefly gave way to fear. Then she tried another performance. "Ellie, you're obviously upset. Your father and I were only discussing what might be best for you. There's a wonderful college in Michigan. I'm not going anywhere. You're behaving irrationally." "No, I'm finally setting boundaries." Vanessa's composure shattered. "You ungrateful little brat. I raised you like my own daughter. You turned me into your maid. I sacrificed everything for this family." "What did you sacrifice?" Her mouth opened. But no answer came. Behind her, Mason pushed his bowl away. "This is ridiculous. I'm not paying rent. My channel is about to take off. You had 4 viewers last night." Chloe muttered. "One of them donated. That was Mom." "Enough!" Vanessa shouted. Chloe turned to me. "Dad won't let you do this." He loves us more than some stupid house. The cruelty of that sentence struck me. But I refused to show it. Vanessa grabbed her phone and called Dad. Once again, she placed him on speaker. Daniel, come home immediately. Your daughter is out of control. To my surprise, Dad's voice was firm. Vanessa. I heard the recording Ellie sent me. Her face changed. You sent it to him, Dad continued. You had no right to pressure me into removing her. It's her house. We need to respect that. What are you saying? I'm saying we may need to find another place. The silence afterward felt almost physical. Vanessa looked at Mason and Chloe as though she expected them to rescue her. Mason stared at the table. Chloe clutched her stained shirt. Then Vanessa walked toward me. Her face stopped, inches from mine, and her voice fell into a low, vicious whisper. Listen carefully. I don't care whose name is on that deed. I have lived here for 12 years. This is my house. And no spoiled little girl is throwing me out. If you try, I will make your life hell. I held her gaze. What she didn't realize was that my phone was still recording. Thank you, I said quietly. My lawyer will appreciate hearing that. Vanessa stepped backward. For the first time since she entered my childhood home, she looked genuinely powerless. That afternoon, I met with attorney Rachel Lawson. I brought the recording, Vanessa's messages, and every document I could find. Rachel studied the deed, then looked up at me. Your grandparents didn't leave any room for confusion. Elena, the property is yours. No one else has an ownership interest. Can Vanessa contest it? She can try, Rachel said, but she will lose. Then she slid a blank eviction notice across the desk. If you want them gone, we can begin today. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled only once before I signed. Rachel did not let me romanticize what came next. This won't feel like winning, she warned. Eviction is a legal process, not a revenge scene. You must follow every requirement exactly. She also corrected something important. Massachusetts generally required consent from everyone involved before secretly recording a private conversation. The kitchen recordings might help me remember what was said, but I could not assume they were admissible evidence. So don't post them. Don't threaten anyone with them. And don't make another secret audio recording, Rachel said. From now on, document written messages. Use visible security cameras without audio. And let me handle communication. I felt embarrassed for speaking so confidently to Vanessa. But Rachel shook her head. You're 22. You made a mistake before receiving legal advice. What matters is that you stop now. The ownership question was much simpler. My grandparents had transferred the property through an estate plan so carefully constructed that Vanessa had no credible claim to it. Dad's name was not on the deed. Vanessa's name had never appeared anywhere. The house was mine. The next afternoon, Vanessa, Mason, and Chloe were formally served with notices requiring them to leave. Vanessa refused to accept the envelope. The process server placed it on the table beside her. I didn't take that. She snapped. You've been served, ma'am. Apparently, refusing to touch legal papers did not make them disappear. Mason reacted by storming upstairs and throwing his gaming chair into the hallway. It bounced against the railing and tumbled down several steps, cracking one of its plastic arms. My career is ruined, he shouted. You still have your computer. Chloe called from her room. I need the right environment. You scream at middle schoolers from a bedroom? At least I'm building something. Chloe's reaction was quieter at first. Then she started a private live stream in which she cried about being suddenly displaced by a jealous family member. Within hours, Clips escaped her private account and circulated among her classmates. Vanessa responded with war. She called attorneys across the area, searching for someone willing to argue that 12 years of residence gave her ownership rights. Rachel later told me that long-term occupancy could create procedural protections. But it did not magically turn Vanessa into the owner. Even Vanessa's cousin, who handled mostly traffic and impaired driving cases, declined to represent her. So Vanessa moved the battle to social media. She posted a long message describing how she had sacrificed her youth to raise a traumatized child, only to be repaid with cruelty. She claimed I was trying to make my loving family homeless because I had become obsessed with an inheritance. For several hours, her friends filled the comments with sympathy. Then, Sarah Mitchell saw the post. Sarah had been my mother's closest friend since college. Vanessa disliked her and gradually pushed her out of our lives. But Sarah had never stopped checking on me. She remembered every birthday and sent messages on the anniversary of Mom's death. Under Vanessa's post, Sarah wrote, "Did your sacrifices include throwing away Rebecca's belongings? Making her daughter clean up after your adult children? And demanding rent from the legal owner while your children paid nothing?" Then she attached screenshots. Over the years, Vanessa had complained to Sarah about me without realizing Sarah was saving everything. One message called me free household labor. Another joked that I would never challenge her because I was too desperate for Daniel's approval. Vanessa deleted the post. But it was too late. Her country club friends began distancing themselves. Chloe's classmates questioned whether her designer bags were genuine. Mason's tiny audience discovered the eviction story and flooded his streams with comments about getting a job. Their carefully built image cracked within days. Mason applied for positions for the first time since graduation. He listed professional content creator as his primary experience. But his entire online portfolio consisted of gaming rants and badly copied dance trends. Chloe's sorority friends were less forgiving. They had believed Dad owned the house and that Vanessa came from independent wealth. Now they whispered that Chloe's lifestyle had been financed by a stepfather living in his daughter's property. For the first time, Mason and Chloe confronted the possibility that no one would continue paying for them. Vanessa became more desperate. She inspected apartment listings but rejected anything without a walk-in closet or updated kitchen. She insisted she had investment accounts. Yet whenever Dad asked for proof, she changed the subject. Then, one Thursday afternoon, she made the mistake that destroyed whatever sympathy I still had. I was working when an alert appeared on my phone. After meeting Rachel, I had installed visible security cameras in the common areas. They recorded video only, and everyone in the house had received written notice. The camera showed Vanessa entering the living room and looking around. She moved toward an antique cabinet containing several items my grandparents had saved for me. Vanessa opened the lower drawer, removed a velvet box, and lifted out 3 necklaces that had belonged to Mom. One was the silver locket Mom wore in nearly every childhood photograph I had of her. Vanessa slipped the jewelry into her handbag. My hands went cold. I called the police, left work with my manager's permission, and met an officer at the house. Officer Patricia Nolan was an older woman with a calm voice and an expression suggesting she had no patience for theatrics. Vanessa began crying before the footage finished playing. "I wasn't stealing anything," she insisted. "I was moving the jewelry somewhere safe." "Why did you place it inside your handbag?" Officer Nolan asked. "Because we're packing. The legal owner didn't authorize you to take it. We're family. This is a misunderstanding." Officer Nolan looked directly at her. Attempting to remove property belonging to the homeowner isn't resolved by calling it a family matter. I recovered the necklaces and filed a report. After speaking with Rachel, I chose not to decide immediately whether to pursue charges. The documented incident already mattered, and I wanted every next step handled carefully. Dad arrived as Officer Nolan was leaving. He watched the security footage twice. The second time, he paused on the image of Vanessa holding Mom's locket. "Why would you touch Rebecca's jewelry?" he asked. Vanessa crossed her arms. "I told you. I was protecting it." "From whom?" She had no answer. Dad stared at her, as though he were finally seeing the woman my grandparents had recognized 12 years earlier. "If you don't leave peacefully," he said, "I'm not going with you." Vanessa's face collapsed. For years, she had relied on Dad's guilt, silence, and fear of conflict. Now even he was stepping away. But Vanessa wasn't finished. The night before the eviction deadline, she called one final family meeting and announced that she had something important to tell us. When she entered wearing her counterfeit Chanel suit and a triumphant smile, I knew she had prepared one last performance. I also knew the movers were arriving in less than 10 minutes. Vanessa stood in the center of the living room like an actress, waiting for the spotlight. Mason sat on the arm of the couch with his arms folded. Chloe occupied the chair nearest the window, holding her phone at an angle that suggested she was recording, despite everything that had happened. Dad wasn't there. After seeing the footage of Vanessa taking Mom's jewelry, he had checked into a hotel. Vanessa told everyone he was away on business. But the overnight bag missing from their bedroom said otherwise. Vanessa smoothed the front of her counterfeit Chanel suit and lifted her chin. "Your father and I have made an important decision," she announced. "We're moving to Florida." I said nothing. "We purchased a beautiful home outside Tampa. It's larger than this place, newly renovated, and has a pool. Frankly, leaving will be a relief. This house has become filled with negativity." Mason looked confused. "You bought a house?" Vanessa shot him a warning glance. "Yes, that was a lie. 2 nights earlier, I had seen the fundraiser she created under the title, Family in Crisis Needs Emergency Housing. It had collected $43, mostly from women in her multi-level marketing group. "And Dad agreed to move?" I asked. "Of course. He understands that a husband supports his wife." My phone vibrated with a message from Dad. "I haven't agreed to Florida." "I don't know what she's talking about." Vanessa continued her speech, claiming she was choosing peace instead of participating in my campaign of revenge. She made eviction sound like a spiritual journey she had planned herself. Then the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Mike Donnelly, the moving company supervisor Rachel had recommended, standing beside 3 employees with boxes and dollies. The arrangements had been reviewed in advance, and the occupants had received notice of the scheduled move. "Good morning," Mike said. "We're here for the court-authorized move." Vanessa's graceful smile froze. "I'm in the middle of a family meeting. We can start upstairs. No one is touching my belongings." Mike remained calm. "Ma'am, the deadline, full, and moving procedure were provided to you. Your possessions are going to the storage unit listed in the paperwork. I need more time to organize. You've had the required notice." Vanessa turned toward me. "You planned this during my announcement. I planned it with my attorney days ago." The performance ended. Vanessa screamed that I was vindictive. Mason rushed upstairs to disconnect his gaming setup. Chloe began crying because the movers were dismantling the decorative wall she used as a background for her videos. Within minutes, the house became a storm of cardboard, footsteps, and accusations. Vanessa grabbed random objects and declared them family heirlooms. One was Grandma's china set. Another was the ceramic serving bowl she had tried to throw away the previous year. "That belonged to my mother," I said. "It has been in my kitchen for 12 years. My grandmother bought it. You never cared about it before. You never gave me permission to care about anything in this house. She released the bowl only when Mike explained that disputed items would remain behind. Mason tried to carry out the expensive coffee machine I had purchased with money from my job. That's mine, I told him. It's in the shared kitchen. I have the receipt. He left it on the counter. Chloe attempted to pack every towel in the upstairs bathroom. I let her take them. After 12 years of being treated like household staff, losing a stack of towels felt like a cheap price for freedom. A sheriff's deputy arrived for the final stage of the move. Vanessa immediately claimed that the movers had damaged her handbags and that I had deliberately broken several pieces of furniture. The deputy glanced toward the visible security camera. Do you want to make a formal report? He asked. Because we can review the footage before you sign it. Vanessa stopped talking. By late afternoon, the house looked hollow. Pale rectangles marked the walls where Vanessa's decorations had hung. Mason's room contained only an abandoned cable and the broken arm from his gaming chair. Chloe's room smelled faintly of perfume. Vanessa stood on the front steps beside her luggage. You think you've won, she said. But when your father leaves you, you'll be alone in that enormous house. Her words found the oldest fear inside me, the terrified child who believed love had to be earned through obedience. This time, I didn't let that child answer. I was alone when all of you lived here, I said. Vanessa's expression faltered. Then she turned away. For several weeks, Vanessa and Dad stayed in her sister's 2-bedroom apartment in the next town. The arrangement deteriorated quickly. Vanessa's sister posted vague complaints online about house guests who refused to wash dishes or contribute to groceries. Mason sold most of his gaming equipment to pay a deposit on a rented room. He eventually found a job at a video game store. It wasn't the streaming empire he imagined. But for the first time, he had responsibilities no one could transfer to me. Chloe moved in with sorority friends. They asked her to leave after a week of crying, borrowing clothes, and refusing to clean. She began commuting nearly 2 hours to college from her aunt's apartment. Her latest video was about being humbled, although the comments suggested she still blamed everyone else. Dad remained with Vanessa for the moment, but something between them had broken. He called me several times. During our first conversation, he apologized for concealing the deed. I thought telling you would create conflict, he said. No, Dad. Vanessa created the conflict. You kept me powerless inside it. He was silent. I failed you, he finally whispered. Yes, I said. You did. Forgiving him, if I ever chose to, would take more than one apology. I had spent too many years protecting his feelings while he ignored mine. The house felt unnaturally quiet at first. I sometimes woke at 3 a.m. expecting Mason to scream at his computer. I caught myself preparing food for 5 people, then remembered no one was waiting to criticize it. Slowly, the silence became peace. I turned Mason's bedroom into a home office. Chloe's room became the closet and reading space I had always wanted. Vanessa's television room became a small yoga studio. But the most meaningful change came when Sarah moved into one of the spare bedrooms. On her first evening, she brought a worn recipe box that had belonged to Mom. She wanted you to have this when you were older, Sarah said. Together, we cooked Mom's chicken and rosemary recipe. The kitchen filled with a scent I hadn't recognized in years. And suddenly I was 8 again. Sitting on the counter while Mom laughed because I had spilled flour across my shirt. I cried before dinner was ready. Sarah didn't tell me to calm down or move forward. She simply held me. That was when I understood what my grandparents had truly left me. It wasn't only a valuable house. It was a place where my history could survive. A place Vanessa had tried to control because she knew it represented something she could never manufacture. Belonging. Sometimes I wonder whether evicting them was too harsh. Then I remember Vanessa demanding rent from me, plotting to send me away, and slipping my mother's locket into her handbag. I don't regret protecting myself. For the first time since I was 10 years old, I can walk through every room without asking whether I am welcome. This house is mine. More importantly, my life is finally mine too.